And so this is the traveler. Basically, this part here is on a car that moves back and forth. So if you loosen one of these lines, or both of them, since I've loosened this one, we should now be able to basically move this to the right. Move this to the right. Maybe you should grease this track a little bit. But basically, it allows you to slide this over. This is what holds the boom in place. So basically, if I move this all the way to the right, if this wasn't prevented right now, it would push the boom out in that direction. And then when we tighten this up, it should pull the boom back. Now, there's two clutches like this, one on this side and one on the other side. If both of these are locked in and this is tight, this will stay exactly where it is and it'll align the boom to the point that it's at. And to move this when we're underway, we should loosen both of those. So you'll see I'm on deck right now. So that means coming up from the cockpit, loosening this on both sides. So probably me and Spandana both have to come on opposite sides. One of us on the low side, very close to the water. Loosen both, move it over, tighten both back up. And in some situations, we might even want to basically have one of us push the boom while we do that. So yeah, it's a lot of things to do on deck when we're trying to trim our sails. Probably something we should fix eventually, because right now it is an issue, but I don't think it's going to stop us from making our big passage. But yes, it would be nice if these lines both came, instead of having a clutch here, came down here, went into our cockpit, and then we could have just adjusted from inside. And then even one of us could adjust it if it was set up that way. So I think we know how we want to fix it. It's just a lot of changes to this whole setup, so it'll have to wait until we're somewhere with a lot of marine supplies. One thing that will stop us from doing that passage is unfortunately our autopilot. If we have potentially 9 days at sea, hand steering that entire time with no target to see in the distance, and instead having to just make sure that we're keeping the boat on track is extremely challenging. And usually we rely on our autopilot to help us with that. One issue we've had, and for the most part it's worked great, but since Charleston, there's been cases where we put on the autopilot, we set it to whatever direction we want to go in, we hit the autopilot button, and it just spins us in a big circle until we turn it off. Not the kind of thing you want on a sailboat, because that causes your jib to get backfilled, it causes your boom to slam across, and all kinds of possible damage to the boat and yourself can happen in that case. So, we would like to fix this, but it happens very rarely. We're not sure what's going on. We've updated the firmware, we have played around with it. The symptoms are really that, I'm actually simulating it right now, where the wheel is turned off all the way, so it thinks the wheel's turned off all the way to one side, as far as we can tell, so the rudder's off in one position. If we spin the boat in that direction manually until this comes back to center line, so again simulating that by turning the wheel at anchor, if we get this back to dead center, it seems to recalibrate itself and realize, okay, this is the direction we actually want to go in, and it fixes itself. But again, it seems to happen very randomly. Sometimes we just put up a sail and suddenly the whole thing gets kind of out of whack, and we've got to figure out why. So, not sure yet what we're going to do about that. I think we have to do a lot of Googling, but hopefully we can get that fixed before we need to go.
Okay, so re-provisioned, re-dieseled, re-gasolined, re-watered. Everything is nice and reset on Turtle, so time to get back to snorkeling. It was the most amazing town. I think our favorite town to visit, Rock Sound, and the people are beautiful and amazing and so nice, but also really efficient. We've got customs and immigration here, so we were able to extend our visa, and we have a great hardware store. I think the best we've seen, honestly, in the Bahamas. And we got to pick up and refill our propane there and pick up a bunch of stuff, so very happy. Oh, and we ate out for the first time in ever, and it was delicious. It's the kind of meal where you're like, oh, this is worth going to a restaurant because they're making it as good or, you know, better than what I could make at home. So it was a really nice treat, and as usual, it was always fun to do it with friends. But I think it's time to get back under the water.
So I think I see what the issue with our autopilot is. Our autopilot thinks that our wheel, which is currently dead center, is actually all the way down here. And so it's constantly trying to get us back to center, but we are at center. And so that's what's causing it to constantly kind of wave in different directions. I'm going through the setup and I can't seem to make it understand that it's off. So yes, still working on that.
I love the cruising community. We were letting our buddy boat know not to worry about us lagging behind because of our autopilot issues, and all of a sudden we were hailed by a cruiser who had overheard us and decided to give us some great advice.
Yeah, just make sure the sensor is nicely mounted, secured, not movable, and then look for that orientation, like a little raised bit on the base that's supposed to be oriented, you know, forward. But it might be something with the electronics, as you said.
Alrighty, so next up is to check the actual physical alignment. So just to give you a little bit of a orientation, that's the rudder coming up. This is the quadrant. There we go. And that black bar right there is the autopilot arm. So it goes off to the distance there. But what we're interested in is, there we go. What we're interested is in this arm right here, this black arm that is attached by that pole back there, and its alignment to this. And right now the steering wheel is centered, and so we look like we are centered. Maybe off by about 5 degrees or so. So the alignment doesn't look bad. So it can't be this. And we checked the black wire coming out of there. So focus. And that seems okay. So don't think the problem is here. This kind of spins independent. Well, it spins. Underneath it looks like that. Feels like something should go through the whole thing, but not sure. And then when we spin the wheel, oh, there we go, spin this wheel, this has a little bit of linear movement to it, so it kind of goes up and down a little bit, and then this kind of goes up and down a little bit too. So yeah, just want to make sure that this is on the way it's supposed to be.
Spandana has looked at the actual physical rudder sensor, and it's a little bit off center, but not much more than what the installation manual says it should be, so that's probably not the issue. So it's not a physical problem with the sensor's setup or alignment. We then looked at the wire running back, and there's just so many wires in the boat that it's really hard to figure out exactly where is it going and where is it ending up. But we can see that for the most part the rudder sensor seems like it's okay, unless internally something's wrong with it. So we're just going to try to fix it by recalibrating the autopilot itself and see if that helps. So we're going to run through these menus and see if we can figure out where exactly we do this. So I think setup looks correct. I think factory reset. So yep, we're going to go ahead and factory reset our autopilot. I hit yes. There we go. Okay, goodbye autopilot. And welcome brand new autopilot. Okay. Oh. Well, that's still very off, so that's not a great sign. Press OK. And then when I come back, it's probably going to tell me it's not happy with anything I've done there. And test failed. Okay.
So the next thing in our investigation is the ACU unit and seeing if there's anything wrong with that. So the ACU unit stands for Actuary Control Unit. And the newer models of autopilots don't need the rudder control unit connected to the ACU in order for it to function, which we do have. So first step is to check if everything in the ACU is, all the wires and everything are connected properly, and the second is to actually disconnect the RCU to see if it still functions, and maybe it's just getting bad data and it's feeding back in through the ACU to the autopilot and messing everything up. So that's the next step. And it's weird. This is an open space. I can see 2 of the 4 screws, but it's still difficult because we can't quite get this bed out of the berth easily. And this space here is tiny, but nothing in a boat is supposed to be easy. Ow, and the sun is blinding me. That is not the ACU. That is... I don't know what that is, but that's not the ACU. Maybe some wires getting split up and everything to go different places, but... Okay, time to close this up and find the ACU. Ah.
I found it. It was in the cockpit locker the whole time. We somehow missed it because we thought it was going to be near the compass, but it's back here. So, didn't need to lift up the bed, but at least we found it. Okay.
Back in the hole?
Back in the hole.
You know, you think you're intelligent human beings, and then you miss something that says Raymarine Actuator Control Unit right here. Alright, time to open her up. Alright, this is the ACU unit, and if I understand it right, this black wire right here that kind of gets split into these different lines, that all is the rudder reference control thing. So I want to remove this to see if this is giving bad data to our autopilot and it's making it think we're in a different position than what we really are. And in theory, we don't need this. The sensor and the ACU can work independent of this. So let's remove this and see what happens.
Join us next week as we try to fix our autopilot issues with hopes that it gets us just that much closer to our big jump to the Virgin Islands.
A big thank you to our Patreons, Madi and Chris and Justin Fagan.